Our next speaker has started a company which conducts research on the local perceptions of the governance in Afghanistan, and later went to Egypt and Libya to support the local grassroots movements throughout the civil war of the Arab Spring in 2011. In 2014, she started BitNation, the world's first blockchain-powered virtual nation, which is also offering victims of current refugee crisis an emergency digital ID and Bitcoin Visa card. Please give a warm welcome to BitNation's founder, Susanne Tempelhof. Susanne, please join us here on stage. With such a great presence, she's still not here. All right, we move on next. We're waiting here on the stage, one amazing Bulgarian. I have to read here, but first I'll say what I think and then I'll read. She's representing Bulgaria in one of the best ways possible, with a charm, with a smile, with a very high IQ, and a mission. And I think that Europe deserves people like this. They all come from our place, like Bulgaria, Czech Republic, Hungary, Poland, etc. So I'm very honored that one of these people is here in this room. And what my team said that I have to say is that in Digital Europe, among others, she stands for thriving e-commerce, digital entrepreneurship, and tech-savvy innovative society. Ranked by the Financial Times as one of the Central Eastern Europe's 100 most influential people in tech, and including in Forbes 30 Under 30 list, she's the most engaged young politician in Europe. Today she joins the stage of WebEd. Please welcome Miss Eva Paunova. I'm so happy to welcome you on stage, Eva. The clicker is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Здравейте и от мен. Добър ден. Като българ няма как да не започна български, but I would continue in English as plan and organizers have kindly asked me to do so. Regulation for innovation. Many of you might argue that that's actually an oxymoron. In fact, I just talked to Christian. I don't know if he's in the room right now. He's the director for Sofia Agency of Investments. And he said, so this is your panel. And I said, yes. And he thought a little bit. And he said, so are you going to say that we as regulators actually, if we regulate, we don't need to be very late with regulation? And I said, actually, not. I generally speak about how we need to have less regulation in order not to hamper innovation. But today, I would even challenge myself by showing the good examples that regulators have put in place in order to foster innovation. Because I believe that regulators cannot create innovation themselves. They can only enable the innovation environment. In order to assess which regulatory approaches have innovation-enhancing potential, I think one must bear in mind how actually innovation happens. First and foremost, innovation requires challenging those things we think we know with certainty. It's about taking risks. On the other hand, I'm sure that most of us would agree that every company, every startup wants to prove that's innovative. But is innovation actually a corporate phenomenon? Don't corporations just change the environment and values that they actually aspire to? Because I do believe that it is not the companies that bring the innovation, it is the individuals in these companies. Regulators can enable innovation by developing various sorts of environments. One of the most important ones, in order to foster the potential in individuals, is actually education. But the education of the 21st and the 22nd century, the innovation that fosters and brings out imagination skills, creativity skills, digital skills that make you know how to embrace technology, critical thinking, the complex problem solving. This is a cause that I, together with a number of believers, have been working ever since I became an MEP, and we set up an initiative called Education Bulgaria 2030. With this initiative, what we try to do is put a very big emphasis on the skills that would equip the young people in the 21st and 22nd century to create, to innovate, to find the jobs that they actually want to create, and most importantly, to be the next innovators. As I mentioned, innovation happens from challenging the established, commonly believed truths and myths. Regulation can stimulate this process by giving enough incentives of people to do so. One way is to reduce the administrative burden for starting a business. And when I mentioned Christian earlier, who is today running probably around from different panels, he actually has some of his colleagues here. Botiu is here, who's part of the municipal council, and I advise you all to talk to them to see what is their vision for Sofia. By reducing administrative burden for one can, for example, more and more people can enter the market. In order to benefit, they must come up with a better product of the existing one, so they foster competitiveness. Whoever had a company without facing any competition now is more eager to produce something new, to bring something new on the market, not just by reducing the price. And I give you an example, what the European legislation did. In the telecom sector, the liberalization of former monopolies was actually one of the major successes. Through a series of regulatory measures and antitrust enforcements, access to the networks of the incumbent operators was made possible and allowed many new companies to enter those markets throughout Europe. This increased competition led to the more rapid development of innovative technologies, such as the much more fast and cheaper broadband connections. Besides showing our regulatory success in the EU, I think these examples come to show us that actually we already have pretty decent, innovative, enabling regulatory framework. But what happens is that very often we don't implement it right and on time, and we are not strict and effective enough. Another example I want to bring. In the 90s in California, a law required the automobile suppliers in the US to offer electric vehicles in order to continue the sales of their gasoline-powered vehicles in the state. Everybody was pretty shocked, but this resulted in more than 5,000 electric cars being designed by the top automobile industries in the US. This drove innovation in electric engines much fast forward than it was ever expected, because companies were prepared to do so, but they just didn't want to invest. They were not eager to work on this technology. But what happened is actually people don't like when a disturbing actually regulation, in this case, come across. What happened is numerous lawsuits, a lot of pressure from the automobile manufacturer as well as the oil industry, and the regulation was ripped apart. Those cars, the electric ones, were either destroyed or sent to museums. So we should bear in mind that most regulation actually faces fear, opposition by those who benefit from the status quo. This is why it's important to be persistent enough in our intentions to create regulatory frameworks that actually can encourage innovation. We all know that the basic truth, no one is smart as everybody. Regulation on technology transfer from university to industry can facilitate the implementation of innovative ideas through patenting, acquisitions, and transfer of those innovative ideas from the university to the private sector. Economists have found that patents continue to foster ex-ante innovation, meaning they induce people to invent because of the prospect of profiting from those inventions. 88% of US, European, Japanese businesses said that they actually rely upon the information disclosed in patents to keep up with the technology and to further advance their own R&D efforts. But this is hardly a new phenomenon. Thomas Edison was very well known to frequently visit the patent office and to study other inventors' patents in order to spark his own ideas. And no wonder that he has more than 1,000 patents. He did quite well. So some of you might argue that patents might impede innovation, but we should probably think, if we imagine a world with actually no patent system to guarantee investors their property rights for their discoveries, in such a system, the inventors would do everything probably and perhaps to be secretive, to guard with jealousy their discoveries, and in order for no one to copy them. So there are many actually benefits for having this sort of patents put in place. How many of you know the common between the microwave, the penicillin, and the peacemaker? Exactly. It's one of those moments that no one expected they would find something, but it actually was this serendipitous moment. Indeed, they came along with other inventions, discovered by accident while the inventor was searching for something completely different. But sometimes those things, those moments, take a long time to come. They need a lot of efforts and a lot of scientists sitting in a room thinking of other things so that something else might happen, and you're never sure of that outcome. It is of utmost significance to maintain this incentive for the business, for the research institutes to invest in research and innovation. It is also equally important that we ensure the availability of funding, especially for those research fields that are less appealing for the industry, because they do not provide imminent added value for a company. And this is why the European Union is doing quite well. Yes, we can do better, but currently we need to also praise the efforts that are being put in funding research and innovation under the Horizon 2020 program. It is actually the biggest European program ever, which has nearly 80 billion available between this year and in the next 5 years. It is a big deal of this budget aiming to support investor-driven frontal research, actually. It's the same type of research that, for example, the discoverer of the microwave happened to figure it out when he was connecting magnetrons and understood that the chocolate in his pockets has melted. All this comes to show that under certain circumstances, public regulation can be a very powerful stimulus for innovation. And I believe it is our duty as regulators to identify those circumstances and actually implement the right measures to prepare the soul in the EU for innovation. Because I strongly believe Europe, Bulgaria as well, and Sofia could be the driving force of future innovative products across the globe. Thank you.
Thank you, Eva.
Thank you, Momen.